Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Ether Amara. So in today's video, I'm going to be following up on a topic that I introduced here on my channel that would be a very deep, very heartfelt, meaningful series that I wanted to start here, being a single mom, being a girl mom, kind of going into this Black girlhood versus the toxic feminine world and how we can keep our daughters safe in their friendships, determining who is a healthy friend, who is not a healthy friend, and how a lot of the toxic behaviors transpire throughout girlhood for Black girls in particular. So I have written down here some notes, and my title for this video is going to be Toxic Girlhood Red Flags. And this is more of a girl mom exhumed topic because I feel like there are so many things that girl moms have to prepare their daughters for in this world. Being that, as I've stated on multiple occasions here, being a single mom of an 8-year-old Black daughter, I have a lot that I have to prepare her for in this world, understanding what racism looks like, understanding what colorism looks like, understanding what femininity is, what toxic femininity is, the whole well-rounded um, box here of things that Black girls need in order to grow into healthy young girls. I feel like there is a lot of toxicity when it comes to what femininity is for a Black girl. And I have gone ahead and written down 4 main points that I'm going to be discussing here. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. So the first one here um, is really talking about the mentality that Black girls um, and I'm not going to say all Black girls, but I feel like there is definitely a common theme when it comes to the way that Black girls are treated. So I really want to kind of discuss what those things look like, how those things can negatively affect, girls when they're growing, especially being at a young age. I think it's really important as a girl mom to really pay attention to these factors. So the first one here is when girls are kind of, learning and growing through, going to school and being around other girls. I think something that is really negative that a lot of Black girls have to deal with, and mind you, this is something that is definitely brought upon from stereotypes. It is definitely brought upon from social media and, television shows that portray Black girls in a very provocative manner. This one, I have narrowed it down to the assertion of overt sexuality to your life experiences. So I feel like a lot of us Black girls at a very young age, we get placed with the stereotypical label that there must be something about us that is specifically only geared towards having a sexual nature. So I wrote an example here of what that looks like and how that transpires into girlhood friendships. So there's an overhaul of an admiring of, your derriere, your backside, and it is in a very overexposing manner. I feel like, at a certain age, you start to recognize that there are specific attributes to you as a Black girl that people are going to gravitate towards, that people are going to make remarks about, who are going to make comments upon. And it is always something that is very much geared towards your derriere, your backside, your bottom areas. And I think that that is something that is very toxic that shows up in girlhood at a very young age. And I feel like that is definitely something that we have to be mindful of. The microaggressions that come through with it, the shake it kind of nature that Black girls get placed with, that we're automatically assumed to perform in a way that shows that side of us, when that is definitely an adultified version of the Black woman, and it is not something that should be asserted to Black girls. Number two here that I have placed in this, top four is going to be basing the quality of character on the upkeep of our hairstyling. So my, example here for this one is when your hair is unstyled, people treat you very different than when your hair is styled. So I feel like for a lot of us, people see us with our braids, people see us with these hairstyles, and they seem to gravitate more towards treating you in a different way when your hair looks presentable to their standard of whatever they have created for themselves versus when they see you take your hair out of braids, or your hair is unstyled, or your hair is grown out of its protective style. I feel like a lot of black girls are placed in a situation where they are treated like completely different people when their hair and when our hair is styled very different. And I feel like that is a very harmful way to um you know treat black girls, and for you to grow with that in your mind, understanding that I always have to perform with what my hair looks like in order to be treated like a human. And I feel like that's not fair. We should be treated as humans, regardless of what our hair looks like, because our hair isn't the only aspect of us that denotes beauty. I feel like it's definitely very harmful for that to be placed into you at a very young age. And you go through life thinking that I have to perform with my hair in order to be seen as, healthy or, mentally competent. I feel like there are a lot of compare cruel comparisons that people will compare you to. Your hair is unkept, you must be mentally ill. Just a lot of these negative things that get placed upon us as young girls, I feel like definitely needs to be debunked, and it needs to be um, fully eradicated from our society as a whole, because it definitely shows itself in girlhood. Young girls are, mimicking and mocking what their mothers say about other black girls' hair and how they feel something looks unkept. And then those same girls are expected to go out into the world and interact with us, and they're going to mimic whatever their mothers say in privacy. And I feel like that is definitely something that is detrimental to our daughters, because we have to meet someone that you have filled and fueled with nastiness. Number three here is the using competitive tactics with boys to see when and whom, or excuse me, using competitive tactics with boys to see whom they favor more. So I feel like it's definitely really harmful when girls will try to associate, the beauty standards and engaging boys in these behaviors and conversations to see whom of which they like more. Who do they think is more pretty? Is it the black girl that's more pretty, or is it the girl, who's not black that you feel like is more pretty? And kind of hardwiring into our daughters that they have to compete with other girls in order to get a boy's attention. Who is going to like the black girl more? And I feel like that is definitely something that is very toxic that you learn throughout life. And, it's like you go seeking these outside sources for validation in your beauty. And it's definitely why we see so many Black women gravitating towards things that are not good for us. And we have to learn the hard way by being told that, oh, well, this guy doesn't like Black girls. He's not attracted to Black girls. So you're not good enough for him. I feel like that's where it really starts with us at a very young age, is when people are telling you, yeah, he likes girls, but not girls like you. And I feel like that is a definite red flag when it comes to girlhood. Making sure that when your black girls are around in these interracial situations, that they're not being treated like they are less than and underneath someone's shoe when it comes to a beauty standard. So, my example of that one is, putting you on display in a way that creates an environment for the body to be critiqued. I feel like a lot of times people will, and the terminology that I've used here is they've used this toxic locker room behavior where they are body shaming, or they are, creating these unhealthy comparisons with you, like, oh, well, maybe, feel like you more because you have a bigger, more voluptuous backside, or because you look more like this. Maybe, you're more attractive than me. And then that creates that comparison where they only want to compete with each other based on whose bottom is bigger than the other. And I feel like that is definitely a very disgusting and toxic girlhood behavior that a lot of moms need to really pay attention to, because it just creates this fuel in young girls nowadays where they feel like they have to show themselves in order to be seen as feminine. It is created this ideology that femininity is what my bottom looks like. If my bottom is bigger than yours, I'm more feminine than you. And I feel like it shows up very young, at a very young age. And I think it's definitely very disgusting, and it's definitely something that I really pay attention to when it comes to who her friends are. Like I said, in the first one, that assertion that sexuality is your personality is where the line has to be drawn in order for girls to know that is not appropriate behavior to be enacting with one another. The fourth one I have here, and this is the last one that I'm going to go into because I'm not going to make this video too long. I really just want to put this series into parts and pieces and make note of the most important parts that I feel are necessary to bring light to as a girl mom, and how to cultivate a sense of belonging for the Black girl. So number four here is, well, well stated in a lot of social spaces for the diaspora about the adultification of Black girls. And, what that means here is the need for girlhood to be altered into a more grown up, sassy demeanor to assert a feminine quality. I feel like so many Black girls at a young age are, facing this assertion that in order for you to prove that you are feminine, or that you are girly, or that you are, um, you know, in your natural nature, you have to start to take on attributes of grown women. You have to start, doing lewd acts. You have to, pump yourself up and act like you are something more older than you actually are. And I feel like those are the toxic feminine traits that carry with Black girls throughout life. And it definitely creates an unfair, childhood experience, because you really forego being a young girl and having, imagination, and going outside and playing in the dirt, and, having imaginary friends and doing things that children are supposed to do, because you have been assigned to be an adultified child who has to keep up with the femininity of women. So I feel like it's definitely something that is very toxic that really needs to be brought to a forefront for our daughters in order for them to be raised in environments where they are healthy and they're not expected to act like women. They're not expected, to assert sexuality as if that is a personality trait. Sexuality and personality are two completely different things here. And I feel like it's very important for our daughters to have a fair advantage when it comes to living in this society and being able to live and be a child. And like I said, go outside and play and run around and, skid your knee and, play in the dirt and, play in the rain and do things that are innocent without having to be pressured into a sexual, um, you know, perceived demeanor. So, those are definitely four things that I wanted to begin with here with this series. Like I said, this is definitely going to be a toxic girlhood red flag when it comes to interactions with our daughters, and really paying attention to their surroundings, because a lot of, girls pick up these things from their own mothers, and whatever it is that their mothers are feeding into them about Black girls, whether it's out of jealousy, whether it's out of envy, it definitely plays a role into how they're going to treat girls that they see in school. And I feel like we have to equip our daughters with enough self love and knowledge to know I'm not going to change myself into what you think that I'm supposed to be, because you don't know who I am. And God created me to be a human being and not to be, um, you know, someone's property. So I think that's definitely where where this series has started for me. It's definitely something I'm very passionate about, being a girl mom. And, when it comes to my modesty movement, what I, am creating here for my daughter, especially when it comes to what, her small business is going to be, and how I want her to express herself in a way that creates that safety in being modest and not being dragged down another lane that is immodest because it's something that is not seen or readily, available in another girl's environment. That being different is okay and being modest is completely okay. And you're not going to try to strip a child of their modesty or of their chastity, which is what it truly is. It is definitely something that a lot of Black girls have to be taught in order for us to not have our children being exploited. And you see this on social media more than ever. There's a competition with girls who feel like they have to prove their femininity in a very lewd way, and I feel like that is very dangerous. And I'm definitely going to be following up with some more pointers into how these things affect our daughters. And I definitely want this to be a space where our sisters can understand how can we reroute our experiences for our daughters so that our daughters are not experiencing sexual abuses in their lives in girl spaces. So it's definitely something I'm passionate about, and I hope anyone who's watching this video is inspired, for themselves to really hunker down and figure out how I can protect my Black daughter from the toxic, girlhood that we have. And yeah, please give this video 2 thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more DIYs, recipes, and reviews. Thank you so much for watching.